Hello challengers, I'm Gail and this is the third part of the How to Fill in a TGO Challenge route sheet series. In part 1 I talked about the route sheet in general and how to fill in the route description for a straightforward route, and part 2 was all about foul weather alternatives. This final part is about making changes to your route sheet after you've submitted it. That will most likely be in response to your vettor's comments, but it may just be that you've spotted something that you want to change or an error that you want to fix. Before we get into the scenarios of when you might want to update your route sheet, first we'll talk a little bit about the process. So once you press the submit button on your route sheet, that will then send it off to the coordinators. They will perform a high level check just to make sure that everything looks okay for the vettors, and they will then choose a vettor and send your route sheet off to them. The vettor will then do their vetting and they will send their comments back to the coordinators. Whichever coordinator originally looked at your route will handle it the whole way through the process, so they will then send the vettor's comments back to you. If we go back to the beginning of that process, then as we saw in part 1 of this video series, when you've completed version 1 of your route sheet, you'll click on the submit button and you get a thank you message come up on the screen confirming that your route sheet has been submitted. You also get an email acknowledgement. In that email is a link to Open Form. If you click on that link, it takes you back to your online route sheet form. If you click on that link before you receive your vettor's comments, you'll see that the Save button has disappeared from the bottom of the screen. And if we just skip forward to page 4 of the route sheet form, you'll also see that we have an Update button where we previously had Submit, and the Save button has also gone from the right-hand side of this screen. This may seem like an invite to make any updates you want to your route sheet, but please, if you've submitted version 1 of your route sheet and haven't received your vetting comments back yet, then please don't make any changes and don't use this update function. If you've noticed something that's wrong with your route sheet or that you want to change that's going to significantly affect the vetting of your route, then send an email to the coordinators letting them know. They will then revert your route sheet to incomplete status, and what that will do is change that update button back to the submit and save buttons. And it will also let the coordinators know to put a hold on your route vetting until you've made those updates. Once you have your vetting comments, there are 2 scenarios. The first outcome is that as a result of your vetting, some changes to your route sheet will have either been suggested or requested. If this is the case, then before you receive your vetting comments, the coordinators will have reverted your route sheet to an incomplete status, which just means that the Save and Submit buttons will have reappeared. You can go ahead and make the changes, saving as you go, because remember this form doesn't auto-save, so you do need to hit that Save button every time you think about it. And then once you have made your changes and updated the version number and described the changes, which I'll talk about more in a little while, then you can go ahead and hit the submit button again. The second scenario, and everyone will reach this stage at some point, is that your route sheet has been approved, in which case if you go back into it you will only have the update button, not a save and submit button. Even though your route sheet is approved, you may find at some point that you want to make some sort of a change to it, which might just be something simple like adding in the name of an accommodation that you've now booked, or it may be something more significant, like wanting to change an entire day. If the change is something you can quickly do in one sitting, then just go ahead and make the change, update the version number and describe the changes, and then hit the update button on page 4. If it's something that involves lots of typing or will take you several sittings to be sure that you're happy with what you're doing, then just drop an email to the coordinator saying that you want to make a change, and they can revert your route sheet back to incomplete status, which will give you that Save and Submit button back and allow you to take your time, save as you go, and then submit when you're happy at the end. No matter whether you're using the update option for simple changes or if you have the Save and Submit buttons back for more significant amendments, once you've made your changes, on page 4 of the form you need to increase the version number by 1, adding 1 to the previous version number. For every version number above 1, a summary of changes box will appear, and it's in here that you just need to type a brief description of the changes that you've made. This is really important, as if the coordinators and the vettors have to play a game of spot the difference, it will take up their time, and it's possible that some changes may be missed. So you may simply have to write typos in hill names corrected or date of PIP 3 corrected, or it may be a list of changes to the route description giving dates and a summary of changes to that day. Once you've finished making your changes and have used either the update or the submit button, You'll get another automated response, and the coordinators will also receive an email letting them know that you've made a change to your route sheet. Depending on what the changes are, the coordinators may just go ahead and approve the new version themselves, or it may go back to the original vetter for review. Either way, you'll receive an email within a couple of weeks telling you that your route sheet has been approved, or perhaps with further vetting comments, in which case you can follow this process again, but do remember to update the version number and put a description of changes before you hit that submit button again.